Hi, this is Kylie Koo. This is my contribution to the Creative Arts Collaborations July #event, CAC School Art. When I was thinking about what to do for this particular challenge, my mind took me back to my high school days and my senior years there and the art classes that I took. As part of those classes, we had a field trip to the Glasgow School of Art, where I saw at first hand the work of the Scottish architect, designer and artist Charles Rennie Mackintosh. The Glasgow School of Art was considered to be one of his greatest architectural pieces of work. But sadly, the west wing of the Mackintosh building of the Glasgow School of Art suffered terrible damage in a fire in May 2014. But restoration work is now well underway. Mackintosh had a very unique and innovative style and was seen as one of the leading lights in the UK of the Art Nouveau and Art Deco movements. His architectural work is still seen today in many Glasgow buildings. And so for this #event and art crawl, I decided that I would create a piece, a mixed media piece, that was influenced by and pays tribute to Charles Rennie Mackintosh. While I still love the work of Charles Rennie Mackintosh today, it does hold a special place in my memories because it reminds me of good times in my school art classes. I'll say a little bit about what I'm doing throughout this video. So here I am, I've been blending a couple of colours onto some canvas board, and now I'm just taking the excess that's on a baby wipe and putting those into one of my other journals, which will start to create a background page there. And just looking out some paper that I'm going to use as part of the mixed media piece. Now here I'm sketching my version of the Mackintosh rose. The rose is possibly one of his most famous creations and is used widely in a number of decorative pieces. It's been used in stained glass windows, on textiles and in paintings. And I just want to give this a little bit of a rose colour. The Mackintosh rose is highly stylised, but is very well recognised. I'm not trying in this mixed media piece to recreate any specific piece of work, but rather I'm trying to draw on several pieces of his work, just to bring it together in a way that, as I said at the start, kind of shows that it's influenced by and pays tribute to the work of Charles Rennie Mackintosh. And now I'm just creating some very small leaves. A lot of his work was quite straightforward and simple. When you break it down and look at it, there are some very simple, clean lines. Yet some of the pieces were highly decorative. Because the canvas board has absorbed a fair bit of the colour, I'm just really adding a bit more to the orange in particular, just to try and get it to stand out a little bit more than it was. So I've cut out the rose and the leaves, and I'm just now inking round the white edges and just going to look at where I want to place them. Now, a lot of Mackintosh's work was really quite precise, and I think that possibly, a lot of his paintings quite precise, and I think that possibly just reflects the fact that he was also an architect. And so I've tried to reflect some of that in this piece, but I don't want it to be too precise, and it is a mixed media piece, so whilst I'm very careful with some of the lines that I'm putting on, there are other pieces where I'm trying to be a bit more fluid with what I'm doing. I'm just wiping down the ruler there every time I use the felt tip pen against it, because I've found in the past that if I don't do that, I then end up smearing ink where I don't want it. So this is a piece of, I think it's embroidery plastic that I use sometimes as a stencil and other times as a stamp. And here I'm just trying to see what effect I actually want to put onto the actual mixed media piece. And I've decided that rather than using it as a stencil, I actually want to use it as a stamp, because that will give me a better effect. So this is where I try to make it just a little bit more loose than having those very solid and precise lines. When you look at some of Mackintosh's work, it's very symmetrical in that those leaves would be positioned really in a way that reflects each other on each side. But then in other pieces, that's not the case. So for this one, I didn't want it to be symmetrical. And that's also why I used 5 leaves rather than 2 or 4 or 6 or whatever. So I'd put my lines in initially with the felt tip pen, and now I'm just going over them with some paint, just black paint which I've added water to, so it gives it more of an inky effect. And while you can't necessarily see it because the video is at speed, I've got it on 4 times speed just now, my hand was shaking quite a bit doing this. I was a little bit concerned that I would muck it up, and therefore the more I thought about it, the shakier my hand got. But I got there in the end. The canvas board does also offer a little bit of resistance in the sense that the paintbrush can drag over it slightly. It would be different if it was smooth paper. So you'll see later that I do some touching up of the lines as well. So I'm marking this up because I want to write a quote on it, and I want to use the kind of Mackintosh style of writing, the kind of Mackintosh font as I think of it. And you'll see when I finish this that I do actually leave those pencil lines in, because again, some of the work that I've seen of his, it does in fact do that, and again I think that reflects perhaps some architectural drawings and the writing that would be on those drawings. So now just taking the chisel end of my felt tip and just going over those lines again. And again, just inking the edges of that piece of paper so that the white doesn't show when I stick it down. And all I'm doing here is to use the opposite end of the paintbrush, opposite the brush end, just to put some, in this instance, green dots onto the grid. Again, if you look at Mackintosh's work, you'll see that there's often grids within his paintings and they would have tiny leaves on them. Again, I'm just trying to do a representation of it rather than to do an accurate copy. And just adding a little bit of stylized detail to the leaves. I decided that the rose needed to be a little bit deeper in colour, and so I'm just adding that on, leaving it a little bit lighter towards the outer edge as a natural rose would generally look. A lot of Mackintosh's work was in fact very bright, and yet there was other work that was really very subdued. He was also a very great watercolourist. And again, just adding a little bit of depth of colour to the leaves. So I decided that that main leaf needed just a bit of detail, so again I picked up some Macintosh type details that he had in some of his paintings. Again, it's my kind of representation of them rather than it being an accurate copy of them. And here I'm just going over the main lines of the rose, just so that it will stand out that bit more. And likewise going around each of the leaves. And just smoothing each of the stems off there. So I'm now putting my coat down, and I do end up covering up some of the detail that I'd already worked on. And just using the back of a pair of scissors there just to make sure that it's adhered as well as possible. So just taking some half beads, I guess, now. I just want to put a few of those on, just to give a bit of a kind of 3D effect, and also when the light hits it, the colours of those will be picked up a little bit. And just applying those, sticking those down with some glossy accents. And I now use the glossy accents on the leaves, just again so that they'll stand out a little bit. I felt that the rose was bright enough, but the leaves just needed a little something to help them stand out. So going around the edge with black, but then I decide that I also want the edges anyway, and the corners, just taken back a little bit with some ink, just to kind of help tone the colour down a bit and give it a slightly aged effect. But I then decide that it actually needs it on some of the main pieces as well, not just in the corners and the edges. And so you'll see me there starting to put it on that leaf in the background. So, as we approach the end of this video, of my contribution, I would encourage you to follow the link, which I will leave above, and that will take you to the work of the other artists participating in this CAC hashtag event. I do hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you've liked it, then I do hope that you'll give it the thumbs up, and if you haven't already, that you'll subscribe to me. Please do leave a comment below and let me know what you think. If you've not seen the work of Charles Rennie Mackintosh before, then please do look him up. He has some really wonderful work. But as always, I thank you for watching. Bye for now.